I feel a bit sorry for the boys carrying that coffin. Herman Van Rompuy is heavier than you might think.
Requiescat in pace, Eurone, in Septem.
This represents the death of the euro, the death of the European project, as you can see, right across Europe. It's the under-30s in every country that are rejecting this model. They don't want centralised government, and frankly, in that room over there, the lunatics really have taken over the asylum. Another 120 billion euros to bail out Greece, a country that's already deeply indebted. It's not going to help. We'll be heading for a third bailout if we go down this road, and I very much hope, for the sake of Greece and for the sake of the northern European countries that are paying into this, that the Greek Parliament on Tuesday rejects the package. We see a default within the next few weeks, and Greece can get back to having her own currency, having a devaluation, rescheduling her debt, and then putting in place a sensible austerity package to put herself back on track. All we're doing here is reinforcing failure. As we warned for years, one size fits all was never going to work in the European context, and whilst we're pleased to be right with our prediction, we are genuinely sad that there are 42% of young people in Greece now on the unemployment scrap heap. So let's hope that some sense prevails in the Greek Parliament on Tuesday. Thank you. I'm not smiling. Well, look. We had our own experience of this 20 years ago. It was called the exchange rate mechanism. It led to record bankruptcies, record house repossessions, and 1 million people unnecessarily being put on the unemployment register. That warned us off joining the euro, but we're now seeing the same thing being played out in Greece, Portugal, to some extent in Ireland. And if you look at the bond markets, they're telling you that actually Spain is the next one. This whole project isn't going to work. It was always about politics. They thought they'd create the euro and a European government would follow shortly thereafter. But you can't build a European state without consent, and that consent pretty clearly isn't there.
Hang on, they'll muddle through, won't they, Mr Farage? The euro won't collapse, it will survive. Maybe it'll lose 1 or 2 members. You're being far too optimistic from your point of view.
Well, the euro is not going to survive in its current configuration. It will be, I'm sure we're going to see countries peeling off. It may become in a few years' time the Greater Deutschmark zone, and that is quite possible. But there's absolutely no prospect of Barroso and Van Rompuy being right that Greece is going to stay part of this eurozone. Default is inevitable.
Well, surely if that happens, if what you want happens, there will be turmoil throughout Europe, banks going bust. This is going to have huge consequences for the people of Europe. Well, shouldn't we be doing our best to help the Greeks?
Well, what we should not be doing is reinforcing the Greeks inside an economic prison, because that's where they are now, and all this bailout does is to try and keep them there. What is happening on the streets of Greece is people are saying, you've robbed us of our democracy, you've taken away our ability to govern ourselves, and when you do that, people, I'm afraid, turn towards violence. So what we want is to get democracy back into these countries, for them to have their own currencies, and that in the end is what's going to happen.
But Nigel, I mean, the idea that they should do absolutely nothing to help Greece, I mean, that's not...
I want to help Greece. I want to help Greece. Good Europeans should want to help Greece get out of this awful prison that they're stuck in, and the way we do that is to help them get their own currency back, to organise a rescheduling of debt, and to help Greece get its democracy back, to get violence off the streets. That's what we should be doing.
But what would that mean for the European banks?
The European banks are going to take a hit at some point anyway. I would have thought they need to be debt right down to perhaps 50%. But you know, if you're a bank owed a very great deal of money, it's better to get 50% of it than none of it. Down the path we're going now, this is heading for a total bust.
So would you have a UKIP-style bailout of Greece, or would you just ignore them?
No, we are very good Europeans in UKIP. We want to live in a Europe where we work together, trade together, and I want to help Greece get back on her own 2 feet, rather as the Icelandic people have done, and that's what we should do.
But would you lend them more money at all?
Well, we've already, of course, David Cameron already, of course, has committed 12 billion sterling to the bailout fund already, with Portugal, with Ireland, and with our contributions through the IMF. I would say we shouldn't put a penny piece into any more bailouts, either through the EU or through the IMF. But if it came to us providing some help to a friendly country to get back on their own 2 feet, I wouldn't object to that.
Nigel, can I just ask you, David Cameron is presenting what he negotiated last night as a significant victory, that he's got assurances that no money from the mechanism will be used. Do you buy that?
Does David Cameron think we're all stupid? He has already committed the British to 12 billion sterling of bailouts for this failing euro project. The fact he didn't put any more directly into it yesterday, I don't think is a very positive thing. We're already given far more than we ought to have done, and there are other things happening inside there apart from Greece. I want to know, what's he doing about a common EU asylum policy, and is he going to veto a transaction tax on every trade that takes place in the City of London? They're the answers that we want. Yeah, okay, it should be all right then, shouldn't it?
In terms of, you know,
Get some wide shots, I think.
You know, what you're saying today, but clearly, you know, there are, you know, serious problems for the Europe-wide economy if this bailout is to go ahead.
Look, of course, when Greece defaults, it's going to have very serious implications for the banks, particularly the French banks, who've lent very heavily to Greece. But the alternative to that is to pour in yet another 120 billion and to head inevitably down the road towards a third bailout. All we're doing by continuing with this policy is making sure that when the bus comes, it's even bigger than it is now.
Joined by thousands of people who do not believe that the euro actually has a future and listen to the coffee.
There's been a massive change over the last few months, and opinion polls now show that the euro, as it's currently constructed, is dead, and that actually the European project itself is now under very, very serious threat, as tens of millions of people, particularly the under 30s in Europe, reject the idea of being governed by centralised, undemocratic bureaucracies.
What do you think about the new plan for Greece? I mean, if you read the newspapers, the leaders seem to be unanimous in saying that, you know, the country is salvaged, everything's going to be fine. It just takes time, they say, 7 to 8 years at the least.
The leaders are unanimously wrong again. They've been wrong about Greece from the very start. She should never have been allowed to join the euro in the first place. She wasn't suited to it. They were wrong to bail her out first time. They're wrong to try and bail her out the second time. And if the Greek Parliament on Tuesday accepts this package, then this time next year I'll be talking to you and there'll be a third bailout. The fundamentals are that Greece is now bust. Her debts are so big she cannot possibly hope to repay them. At some point there is going to be a default, and whilst I accept that that's unpleasant because European banks, French ones in particular, are going to lose money, it's better to take the loss now rather than to force an indebted country to take another 120 billion euros worth of debt. It is completely wrong and mad.
Do you believe that if this bailout does not go through and Greece does not default, then basically
well, it will certainly be the end of the euro as it's currently configured. We'll see other countries leave and we'll finish up effectively with the greater Deutschmark zone. Of that I'm fairly sure. As far as the overall European project itself is concerned, I mean, the two big achievements really, one has been the introduction of the euro, the other has been the free movement of peoples, and in particular the Schengen area, and as we saw a couple of weeks ago, the Danes have effectively torn that up too. So yes, there is going to be a new debate about what kind of Europe do we want to live in, and I think this European Union, headed by the Van Rompuys and the Barrosos, is something that increasingly is being rejected.
You are like everybody says.